Hello, and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and this is day 16 of 25 Days of Tonalism. The study that I've done today is painted after Gilbert Munger. It's called Barbizon Landscape. Now, I've never even heard of Gilbert Munger prior to finding this particular piece that I liked to make a study after. So I did do some research here, which basically consists of putting his name into Google and seeing what comes up. And I will include a couple of links in the corresponding blog post. There appears to be an entire site dedicated to Gilbert. It's called the Gilbert Munger website, and it seems to be a pretty comprehensive collection of his work and paintings. So there's a little summary of him that's from that website. Gilbert Munger was born April 14th, 1837 in Madison, Connecticut. He showed interest and talent in art early in life. His family allowed him to follow this inclination by sending him at age 13 to Washington, D.C., where he became an apprentice engraver, living at the home of William H. Dougal, who was a senior engraver for the Smithsonian. He worked at this trade for about 10 years, producing many plates for various U.S. government reports published in the 1850s. He became good friends with other artists in town, including John Mix Stanley and John Ross Key. Through these associations and his own efforts, he taught himself to draw and paint. When the Civil War started, Munger became employed by the Union Army working on the defenses of Washington, D.C. When the war ended, he gave up his military employment and moved to New York City to try a career as a professional artist. And it goes on extensively. I won't get into it. But like I said, the links are here, and it's always great to discover another interesting American artist. So, if this you like my study after this guy, dig on in. You can find out a lot more about him. Now, I am actually recording this. Oh my goodness, it's still February right now, but when you hear this, it's going to be into March. It'll probably be March 4th. Reason for that is I'm going down to Auckland here in Northland, New Zealand, to listen to a really wonderful speaker named Tom Campbell, whose work I've followed with great interest for many years, and he's making his way out to our island here, so there's no way I can miss it, since he's been such a big influence on my life. Mostly regarding philosophy and consciousness research and things like that, which really interests me quite a lot. And I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listened to Tom Campbell's books while I was doing paintings, since his books are available as audiobooks. And I think it's just great because two different parts of my mind are engaged, and I'm learning at the same time as getting some work done, which is like a huge win-win. Normally I'm not into multitasking. You need to be careful what sort of multitasking you engage in, that's for sure. But listening to audiobooks while you paint seems to be, it works for me. It might not work for someone else, but or podcasts, same difference, I really enjoy learning a lot about like I say, consciousness research or philosophy, or even comedy podcasts and things like that. It really is an awesome thing these days that we can have this sort of specialized education and entertainment right at our fingertips, more than we could ever listen to. And I should say thank you for following my videos and blog posts. I know you have a lot of other options. There's, like I was just saying, more things that we can read and listen to than we could ever read and listen to. So all of us have to be somewhat discriminating these days, and I appreciate your discrimination, and hopefully you're getting something out of it. I know you are, because our site, both sites have been growing, actually exponentially, I must say. I don't have huge numbers, but we're not talking thousands. We're talking hundreds of people subscribed, and Well, over time, I've had thousands of views on my YouTube channel. We're getting close to like 18,000 total views, and or 17,000, something like that. And it's well over 20,000 views of my blogs over there on Blogger. Um, so thanks for that. Well, I couldn't really tell you how it went in the studio last week because I am recording this before I actually work in the studio, but I'm hoping it's going to go well. I'm going to be working on, as I said in the last post I put up, or the last video I should say, a 14 by 20 and a 16 by 22. Both of these are really nice sizes to work. I really feel pretty, especially 14 by 20. I like that size a lot. It's not too huge, but it's getting bigger. I'm always trying to push that size envelope in. It's just sort of as a byproduct of the way I taught myself to paint. I'm definitely more comfortable with the smaller sizes, but I'm pushing that and broadening that. And the real challenge, of course, is I like to have a gestural feeling in my work. I don't like things to be overworked, and the larger you work, you really have to make an effort to keep that going. It's so easy because things are so big to just over pattern and over detail things and lay down too many brush strokes to the point where things become, not that expressive. And the whole idea of a painting is to be expressive, in my view. We have we have photography for everything else, and not saying you can't create some expressive photography or do some interesting manipulations of photography in Photoshop. You certainly can, and people certainly do. And in these movies we see these days, my mind always goes back to those recent Hobbit movies where some of those scenes were just so fantastic. The visual imagery, they were like paintings. And another movie I might mention, if you're into landscape painting, is I'm drawing a blank. Barry Lyndon by Stanley Kubrick. What a genius he is. I really consider Stanley Kubrick to be the greatest artist of the 20th century period. And when you see a movie like Barry Lyndon, and you're a landscape painter, you realize that every scene is really composed with the painter's eye and his photography. I'm sure he worked with a cinematographer, but make no mistake that Stanley was the man in charge, especially when it comes to the visual imagery. He got his start as a photographer, and not that many photographers end up in the director's chair, and that is the primary way that he drives his movies. There's so much visual information in almost every scene that people have been studying his work for many, many years after he's passed away, and his movies are still incredibly relevant. Anyway, like I mentioned in a recent video here, I am working on the 25 more days of tonalism, and we're making some real headway, so it won't be that long before I'm actually done with the 25 more days, and probably at that juncture I will probably jump in and go ahead and start I don't know, I can't call it 25 more, but I'm thinking of another 25 days of tonalism. I could probably keep going with that sort of thing for a while, but it hardly matters, because the idea is really just to engage with the work of these past masters. And it's one thing to look at something, it's entirely another to look at something and try and recreate the effects in it. And it's been really good for my painting, and if you're a painter, I recommend you try that too. I mean, we all have our favorite painters, and in the old days, this was really how people learned. They would go to museums and they would set up their easel and they would make copies after the masters. And there's been a lot of things that have gone down to denigrate beauty in art. I won't go off into a rant, as I've been known to do there, but suffice to say that beauty in art's making a comeback, and ugliness and cleverness, I guess they have their place as entertainment. I don't really know, but I would rather create something that I think is beautiful and moving. And so that's what I do. And if you're a painter, hopefully that's what you're doing as well. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end. Thanks for joining me today. Day 16 of 25 Days of Tonalism. I hope you enjoyed looking at my study done after Gilbert Munger. And y'all come back next week for another one of these 25 Days of Tonalism. And come back tomorrow. We'll be getting one of my own pieces up, and for your edification and enjoyment. So we'll see you next week, and meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble. Also, subscribe. Click the subscribe button. I appreciate it. It just means it's easier to find my work. Take good care. Bye.